Hello, my name is Derek Sharp, and welcome to The Playtester, a 3D first-person game where the player can break every aspect of the game by passing through walls, hacking enemies, and typing in commands to change the environment. In The Playtester, the player is given developers access to their Sassy Friends video game and is asked to playtest every level that comes out. Each level is linear and involves the player typing in console commands to spawn enemies or objects into the game, manipulating enemies' scale, movement speed, and behavior, and using items that allow them to pass through the environment, all in order to get from the beginning of the level to the end. There are rules that come with these game-breaking abilities, however. When the player becomes intangible and passes through the environment for a short time, they are still affected by gravity and will pass straight through the floor to the abyss below, unless they can find a safe area to land once they become tangible again. Levels in the game also don't have a reset of any kind, so any changes players make to enemies in the game are permanent. This forces the player to think critically of how they modify the enemies in the game and to think of clever solutions to the game's puzzles. Typing in commands is also incredibly dangerous, as commands that are typed incorrectly could have disastrous effects, or spawn enemies or objects in the game that the player didn't intend and can't get rid of. These effects force players to think like a programmer and become very intentional with what they do and formulate a plan of attack for every puzzle instead of simply trying whatever works. At the end of each level, the player is taken out of the friend's game and is returned to the protagonist's bedroom as the in-game hub. There the player will engage in small exchanges of dialogue with the protagonist's friend and rate missions after completing them. The play possibilities provided by this game differ greatly from what other games could provide. By reminding the player that they are playing a video game instead of being fully immersed in the experience, they can begin to see the game as a tool that they can bend for whatever purposes they need. What are normally glitches in other games can be fully intentional in The Playtester, such as bypassing tough areas of the map by clipping out of one room and jumping to the next. Players can also treat enemies as their pawns instead of as an opposition by switching enemies' runtime behaviors as a deliberate choice rather than as a result of something happening. As inventive as this game is, it does come with several risks. First and foremost is the art style, as the hub the player returns to after each level should feel very realistic to imitate a real-life person's bedroom, but the levels of the game should be stylized in a very video gamey way, but not so distracting that the player is taken out of the experience. Players may also not like the protagonist's developer friend. The friend talks to the player over the phone in almost every level and even helps them through some puzzles, but does so in a way that comes off as impatient and rude in a charming way. The risk here is that most players will be turned off to this kind of negative behavior happening so often, but some players might not feel engaged enough with a voice that is more neutral in tone. Some mechanics-based risks involve players never knowing how to best utilize the game's typing commands, or how best to manipulate the game's enemies to complete puzzles. These being features not often seen in other games, players might become too overwhelmed on their first playthrough and not understand how to problem solve with such game-breaking abilities at their disposal. Overall, the playtester is similar to the Portal series in a number of ways. Both feature snarky companions that sometimes help with puzzles, linear puzzle-oriented gameplay where enemies can sometimes be used to the player's advantage, and the playtester's hub-based design is similar to the co-op mode of Portal 2, where the two-player robots are returned to a central hub after every level. Because of these similarities, any gamers that have played and enjoyed the two entries in the Portal series would feel right at home in the playtester. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Derek Sharp, and this has been my presentation of the Playtester.